Okay, well, Sean, I'll just do a very brief introduction. It's not Sean, sorry, Will, before I hand over to you. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. There are still people joining, but we'll continue to let people in. So as it says on the screen, everything you need to know about sponsorship and the Home Office compliance in 30 minutes. So our presenter, Will Murch from Borderless, has got that challenge, and I'll hand over to Will in a moment. As Borderless are one of our partners, and I know quite a few of the names on that have signed up for today, and some of our members do use Borderless. So thank you, Will, for joining us today. Delighted to be working with you on this. And it's a topic that's had its fair share of recent changes and challenges. So before I say over to you, obviously we are recording this, so if you don't want to be on camera, just switch your camera off, and there will be an asset pack shared after this event. So Will, over to you. Will, have you froze? Have we lost Will? I think, Will, are you with us?
No, I can't hear us. He's moving. He's not frozen on my screen.
Will? Oh, just bear with us. Slight technical. Is Will rejoining? Will, over to you. Welcome.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and sorry for the technical issues there. Yeah, always blaming the Wi-Fi. But yeah, lovely to be here today and having things all fixed. I'm really excited to speak to you all over the next 26 minutes now, just everything you need to know around sponsorship and Home Office compliance. You know, this is going to be relatively high surface level given that we only have 30 minutes, but you know, you can always get in contact with us if you have any specific questions beyond this. I guess just a little bit of a housekeeping, feel free to put any questions into the chat as we go through the session. Hopefully we'll have maybe 2 or 3 minutes to the end for a live Q&A. And then obviously, as Elizabeth has said, this is recorded, so feel free to digest this afterwards, and all of the slides and all of the links we pertain to will be shared after. Very quickly, from my side, as a quick introduction, I'm William Murch. I'm a senior partnerships manager here at Borderless, where we're supporting some of the largest adult social care providers in the UK, like Active Care Group, We Care Group, and National Care Group. And beyond that, we're supporting around 500 organisations in the UK with sponsorship and with Home Office compliance. So we really are on the front line with the Home Office every single day. Securing causes, processing visas, and ensuring compliance for those that we support. A little bit about our mission. We're really on a mission to create a world without barriers, and really a world where borders are no longer barriers and anyone can move anywhere seamlessly and safely. And as you all know, with UK businesses facing, the current labour shortages, the Borderless platform really looks to simplify immigration from sponsorship licenses all the way through to visa processing and ongoing compliance. But what we talking about today, just a quick agenda, we'll just be looking at essentially the changing immigration landscape, what the recent changes from July and the key takeaways from HC 997 mean. Then we'll be looking at, for those new to sponsorship or looking to get started, what you need, that key sponsorship license. Beyond that, we'll be just touching on, the kind of compliance duties that are responsible of a sponsor license holder and the risks that come with being non-compliant. And then we've just got some updates of what we're seeing the Home Office do around recent fines, really what they're looking for when they're doing audits. And then finally, we'll just round off how we're supporting providers up and down the country. And as I said, we should have some time at the end for a little bit of Q&A. So on July 1st, the Immigration Statement of Change HC 997 was published. This was coming off the back of the Immigration White Paper earlier in the year, and essentially provided more detail following that Immigration White Paper over, what a revised vision of the UK immigration system looked like. it really had three core pillars. The first one being to reduce net migration by raising skilled worker requirements. Secondly, to promote, train, and recruit from domestic workforce. I think the government really wants to see organizations doing that. And then finally, to ensure that immigration serves the national interest, but it's still TBC on, what that actually looks like. So then we've got, what the key changes to come out of this. And essentially it's, first of all, the end of sponsorship for overseas care workers. Then we've got the higher salary thresholds. And then thirdly, we've got the changes to supplementary employment rules. Fourth, we've got the rising skill threshold for those skilled workers in the UK. And then finally, we've got the introduction of 2 interim shortage lists. We're just going to touch on each of those key changes a little bit more. So the first one is the fact that, as many of you will know, sponsorship is ending for overseas care workers. And from the 22nd of July, employers are no longer able to, sponsor these individuals as carers or senior carers, and no longer able to, assign those defined COSs as previously they once were. But it is really, really important to note that, in-country switching for these codes, 6135, 6136, you will be able to do this up until 2028, and it's still TBC on what will be happening post July 2028. So for any already on the SOC codes, care workers and senior care workers, you're still okay. What we're also seeing is, really rising salary thresholds, not just within care, but across all roles and jobs in the UK. All general salary thresholds and going rates for the skilled worker, global mobility, and scale-up routes have increased. Luckily for SOC code 6135 and SOC code 6136, it's not increasing, and it still remains the higher of 25,000 or £12.82 per hour. One of the big things we've seen, and one of the big shifts maybe some providers are still getting to know, is really the changes around the supplementary employment which are happening. So pre-July 22nd, skilled worker visa holders could undertake supplementary employment for up to 20 hours a week in any role on the shortage occupation list. But post-July 22nd, this has really, really changed. So the supplementary employment is now restricted to the same role as the one that the individual is being sponsored for, or a role at the RQF level 6. So this is just like a higher banded role, or finally a role on the immigration salary list. So this is maybe where some providers are seeing some issues in terms of compliance, and with the candidates themselves, them being unsure what kind of supplementary employment they can do or they're restricted to. Again, we've just touched on, the rise in skill threshold for skilled workers. And this is essentially effective for COSs issued after the 22nd of July. So what we're seeing here is just a real uptick in the quality of maybe individuals in the UK or those coming to the UK from roughly like an A-level language of English to a university level of English. But, some roles, specifically within the care sector, are exempt, and, you can still switch and extend as normal. So I guess this is just in line with the government's initiative to increase the quality of migrants coming into the UK. So then finally, we've got the introduction of 2 interim shortage lists. I think the government love to, give with one hand, take from another. But effective from July, we've got 2 lists. The first one being the immigration salary list. And this essentially includes all of the roles that the MAC judge to be in shortage, including care workers and senior care workers. So this is how the government adds new roles or takes roles off of the immigration salary list. And then that dictates, if people are or are not allowed into the country. We've then also got the temporary shortage list. And this essentially allows temporary sponsorship of, high-level skilled roles that are seen to be critical to the UK's modern industrial strategy. But yeah, as we've said, care roles remain eligible for sponsorship via the ISL and TSL, but this route could end in July 2028. That's still, a few years away, thankfully. And again, we'll likely see things change depending on, what we're seeing in the sector. But what is the impact of all of this for you as providers? We've got, Jane Townsend, CEO of Home Care Association, Martin Green, CEO of Care England, really essentially saying that this is going to make recruitment a lot harder. We've already seen that we've got 130,000 vacancies existing in the social care sector. Sponsorship and sponsored workers have helped to stabilize that since 2021, but it'll be really interesting to see how things play out looking ahead over the next 10 and 15 years. Skills for Care say that we need another 540,000 additional care workers, and it's hard to see where those individuals will be coming from if the ban on overseas workers remains in place. And unfortunately, we're also seeing drops in British nationals leaving the care workforce. And I think, since 2020, 2021, about 70,000 individuals have left. Having said that, though, sponsorship is still on the cards for providers. And for those that are maybe new to sponsorship or, just thinking about getting started, you still can get a sponsorship license. The government every single day releases a list of all of the companies that have a sponsorship license. It's roughly about 100 to 150 new companies every single day are getting a sponsorship license, and with a subset of those being in the adult social care sector. But what is a sponsorship license? And essentially, your sponsorship license enables you to hire non-UK nationals. And as a sponsor license, you can then start sponsoring overseas or in-country international individuals. Without a sponsorship license, a UK business cannot lawfully employ overseas workers. And if you do, you're putting yourself a huge reputational and financial risk of fines and, even criminal sanctions. As I said, the government, gives about 100 to 150 new companies every single day a sponsorship license. Even here at Borderless, we've supported 300 companies get their sponsorship license. We've got like a 95% success rate compared to the industry average of, doing it yourself, about 60%. And they've really just supported, supporting organizations and providers save third-party fees.
Will, I'm not sure whether you want to take questions at the end, or there is a question in the chat. And that's regarding anyone in the UK who is either a skilled worker or someone on a dependent visa. Do we need to do criminal checks for them in their countries as well as DBS checks?
That's a great question. I think DBS checks comes down to the role they're doing within your organization. But what I can do is I can just go away and double check that with our immigration experts, depending on if it's criminal checks just in the UK or if it's in their home countries. But thank you, Claudia. Great question. But sponsorship, is something that has been going on for a while, and there's some real benefits to both parties, not just the organization, but for the individuals. For the organizations, we're seeing reliable, loyal workforce, giving that access to talent to fill skills gap. 1 in 4 in the sector, in the adult social care sector, are on some sort of visa. So you're really straight away tapping open an additional amount of individuals that you can get into your organization. And then what you should see from this is a real boost of business performance and growth and enhanced workplace diversity and innovation. But let's not forget, sponsorship is, really revolves around the individuals. And for those individuals, you're giving, really great career progression, skill development opportunities, higher wages and overseas remittance opportunities. And then, finally, pathways to citizenship. However, we have seen the Home Office recently increase the duration of ILR from 5 to 10 years. And again, TBC on what they'll be doing with that in the coming months and years. But along with your sponsorship license and getting started with sponsorship, or if you are already sponsoring, many of you on the call might already be, you'll know that this comes along with compliance duties. And these compliance duties start the day you get your sponsorship license, and they encompass, a few key areas, those being record keeping, ensuring that you as an organization are maintaining comprehensive records of your sponsor workers, for at least 6 years, in lots of cases. You've then got monitoring and reporting, being able to track sponsored workers and report changes to the Home Office, things like addresses, emails, numbers, anything that's to do with the individuals, you need to ensure that you're monitoring and reporting that. You've then got absence monitoring, so making sure you're recording and reporting unauthorized absences of sponsored workers. In some cases, beyond a specific period of time, you'd actually have to stop hiring those individuals. You may have to let them go. So just making sure that you're keeping to within the confines of your compliance duties. You've also have to update the Home Office with any company changes, right? If your company HQ has changed, if you've become from a small sponsor to a large sponsor because your company revenue has grown, all of these things you need to just be constantly updating with the Home Office. And we always say, you can probably never over update the Home Office with changes, but you can always, under update them.
Does that include, Will, a change of address? So if the worker moves house, does that include notifying the Home Office of a change of address?
Yeah, so you'll have to go on and log into your SMS and update the Home Office with a change of your address. Obviously the Home Office use this in a few different ways. One, for sending information to that individual. And then, secondly, if, for example, you were to lose your sponsorship license, the Home Office needs that address so they know where to send a curtailment letter to that employee. So there's lots of different ways that the Home Office does use this data. Some of it is just for reporting where are the sponsored workers in the UK. Some of it is for reaching out, and I'm sure many of around the displaced worker situation we are in the UK at the moment with lots of those displaced workers. Unfortunately, we don't know where they are. We don't know what they're doing, but they need support. So that's one way, by keeping the Home Office updated, you're doing your bit and staying compliant. And then finally, you need to ensure that the appointed key personnel on your sponsorship license are always up to date. It's kind of crazy, but we've had it before where we've been supporting an organization and a key personnel is someone that left the organization 2 years ago, and that they still have access to the SMS, which is a big, red flag from the Home Office. And again, here's just like a bit more around, what you need to report just to do with yourself as an organization. So that's, change of authorizing officer or key contact on your sponsorship license, adding or removing a branch or a site. If you're a growing organization, the Home Office needs to know, which sites you have, where your sponsor workers are, and what sites they're working at. Any changes to your business details, your address, any accreditation changes, and major business events like mergers, takeovers, sales. We're constantly supporting organizations through the 2P process. So that's where maybe your organization is being bought or sold to someone else. And we have put together actually, sponsor license duties and guidance for authorizing officers checklist, which will also be sent out after, which you can download, and just really breaks down the key duties and guidance if you are the authorizing officer. And unfortunately, what we are seeing across the board is enforcement increasing from the Home Office. So it's becoming even more important to protect your sponsor license and protect your sponsored workers. Looking even at Q2, for the last few months in this year, 1,636 sponsor licenses were either suspended or revoked. This is a big uptick from 615 in the first part of the year, and the highest levels since 2024. And again, on the other side, we're seeing lots of organizations still putting applications in to get a sponsorship license. 34,000 organizations in the year ending in June 2025, but 50% fewer than the year before. But actually, what's interesting here is that only 64% of those were accepted, and we're seeing about 44% refusal or withdrawal rate. So they're becoming a lot more stringent on who can get a sponsorship license, the types of organizations, and the kinds of documents that you need to give to the Home Office in order for you to then successfully get your sponsorship license. And obviously, if you don't get your sponsorship license, or if you're in an unfortunate position where it gets suspended or you lose it, this can have like huge fine consequences, other public penalties. Also quite bad for the brands that you're trying to build and the story you're trying to tell through your organizations. And again, just to bring it back, penalties do start around £45,000 and up to £60,000 for each offence thereafter. The government also publishes every company that gets fined, and I think we were looking through them last week. Even the likes of Barchester got fined in the last 12 months for non-compliance. So non-compliance happens across the board, whether or not you're a small organization just getting started, or if, like Barchester, you're a top 5 care home group in the country. If anything, the more you start to sponsor, the more the burden of compliance can get quite tricky. And this is really where the power of the Borderless platform comes in. We've built a complete solution to really effortlessly ensure Home Office compliance. So we directly integrate with your sponsor management system and any HR system you're using, making it easier than ever to report changes to your license or on your workers. And we can support with, storing critical documents, helping you, keep on top of visa expiries, report changes of circumstances. And, if you do need extra support with that Home Office audit readiness, we can support with that as well, both in person, sending our immigration advisors down to you, or virtually conducting and supporting with audits. What would be really good now, I'm always asking this around, the webinars and the information that we're sharing is, having learned maybe a little bit more around sponsorship, compliance, what your next steps are. Is there been something in this session where like, oh gosh, I didn't know we had to do that, we're going to go speak and discuss compliance management internally? Are you just going to be continually, signing up for webinars and blogs and reading more around sponsorship, or do you think you might be in a position to, reach out to immigration and compliance experts, here at Borderless? Maybe you could just put like a 1, 2, or 3 in the chat. It's always just good to see what people are saying. I'll just give that one moment. I'll give that another moment. Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure it's like a mixed bunch here, and obviously we have gone over everything from what is a sponsor license all the way up to like just your duties, given that we've only got half an hour, so we've just really been able to scratch the surface. But what we're really seeing is just a real changing immigration landscape. There's lots of things great about sponsorship, and there's lots of things that can make it quite challenging and difficult. And what we're looking to build is just that full solution to support providers. And we're also getting involved in lots of other fun stuff as well. I think this week we've launched our East of England Displaced Worker Portal to support the matching of displaced workers with compliant providers, which is great, and hopefully we'll be rolling that out across the country. There's lots of amazing sponsored individuals and migrants already in the country. So again, I wouldn't take the fact that no longer can you hire overseas as the end of sponsorship. In the UK, you can still very much either get started now or really look to grow your workforce to continue to deliver more exceptional support. Okay, so it looks like we've got some answers now, which is really cool. Nice. So it looks like we've got some answers from across the board, which is usually the case. Some that's like, maybe a chat about sponsorship and how you're managing might help. And then we've also got those who are like, okay, maybe it's time for another conversation to have internally. How are we storing our documents? How are we managing sponsorship? And then a few others which are probably, again, just doing the right thing, staying up to date with what's happening with sponsorship, via your care association, via the great work that Elizabeth is doing, the team, via like the webinars and free webinars we're putting on, and downloading the resources and just really keeping abreast of what's going on. It's always a changing and dynamic world, and again, coming up to October, likely see some more changes from the Home Office. It's usually the start of the year and then towards the end of the year. Awesome. And yeah, again, on the slide, we've just got a QR code there. If you do want to scan, just find some time. Maybe there's some questions you just want to ask one-to-one, and you can speak with one of our immigration experts completely for free. Awesome. So I think we've got 2 or 3 minutes now. I've managed to time absolutely perfectly. Apologies if I've been speaking very, very fast. but this has been a whistle-stop tour of sponsorship. Again, yeah, mine is Will. It's been an absolute pleasure, and yeah, happy to open up for any Q&A, or even just, if anyone wants to talk about their experience of sponsorship. If you just got your sponsorship license, you're already sponsoring a large workforce. Usually in these forums, if you have a question, or if you're in a situation, it's highly likely another provider has been there or done that. And what we find together is like coming together with answers has been really, really supportive.
Will, can I just ask while people are thinking if they've got any burning questions, just a point of clarity with regards to overseas workers and the changes. Am I right? You can no longer bring overseas workers from another country. It's only in country now.
Yeah, so you can no longer bring overseas workers in. So that was previously on a defined COS, so for an overseas worker new to the country. However, if they are already in the country, already on the SOC codes 6, like the carer or senior carer, they are still able to switch and extend up until 2028. So again, pretty much every visa we do now within the care sector is those switching or extending. The people are still being very, very active in growing their sponsored workforce, and you still very much can do that. What the Home Office and what the government has looked to do is really just reduce and dampen those new people into the UK. But having said that, just looking historically at the visas we've done, that was typically only a small portion of sponsorship anyway. Lots of great individuals, lots of amazing talent already here, likely already in your area, likely you're already acclimatized with living in the UK, which makes it a lot easier for you as providers.
And with regards to kind of supporting providers with getting COSs, I mean, that's a big, day-to-day thing we hear in the Sussex hub. But before that, there's a question in the chat. How can the business be protected from all the increasing costs of employing staff on COSs, increased national insurance and upfront costs for each COS, which is lost if a COS member of staff then up and leaves, very costly. And when we have 9 staff on COS,
So obviously some government fees around sponsorship, unfortunately, if you pay like the COS assignment fee and they leave after a year, you cannot claim back. There are some government fees which you can claim back. For example, if you're paying up front for 3 to 5 years and they leave after 1, you'll be able to claim them back. And it's actually typically one way that we really just very quickly support providers, just ensuring that they put in those requests and they're getting those refunds. At Boardless here, we've built into our platform some processes to secure COS priority slots, so we ensure that you can get them as quick as possible. And just the fact that we put forward so many COS applications to the Home Office, we typically know what documents they'd like to see, workforce planning, showing shortages, and really building that evidence, which makes us really, really successful. And in lots of cases as well, where we haven't got COSs, we've rebuked the Home Office and said, look, hey, actually, no, you're in the wrong. And occasionally they do apologize, which is very, very rare, but it does happen. So just the fact, we're on the front line means that we can really support.
And of course, through the International Recruitment Project in the Southeast, there are grants available for providers if you meet the criteria. And I mean, you can message me directly, but there are grants up to £6,000 per worker per location. You can have up to 6 workers per location. So there are some grants available to cover some of these costs. And in light of all the increased costs, SESCA did up the grant allocation. So if you're not part of that scheme and you want to, then just message me, because if there is a criteria to meet and an assurance framework, but there is support out there.
Yeah, and just to echo, I think the current situation is you can use that for a few numerous things around sponsorship, and we see lots of our providers leaning into not only just support in the Southeast, but support across the country via the International Recruitment Fund. And I would say, if you are thinking about leaning into get in contact with Elizabeth for that support. That funding won't be here forever, and we hope that it continues, but we'd like to see as much of it used to support the sector as possible. Awesome. We're conscious 2 minutes over. Yeah, if anyone does want to reach out, maybe ask any more questions, or if you'd like to chat with one of our immigration advisors, feel free to do so. And yeah, you'll be receiving these slides very shortly, along with a few of the other things that I've mentioned. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope everyone's having a really good week. And yeah, looking forward to doing another one of these very soon.
And if you haven't signed up through our website, pop your email in the chat so we know who to send the asset pack to. So you will get a recording of today. Those of you are members, it will be uploaded to our members section as well. So you'll have it there in perpetuity. And yes, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I hope it's been useful. And just sign up for our newsletters. There's lots of events happening between now and Christmas, so just keep in touch. Thank you, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.